Welcome back to Lesson Mentor. Today, you will be removing all of the leaves from this yard and adding at least one tree to add some greenery to this landscaping job. Let's get started. Your directions. Open this document using Photoshop. Number 1. Remove all of the leaves from the image using a combination of the Clone Stamp tool, Patch tool, and the Content Aware Fill option on the Edit menu. Number 2. Choose a tree below. Number 3. Add the tree to the image in the location of your choice. Use adjustment layers to adjust the lighting to match the image more closely. The video tutorial will explain how to use channels to remove the white spaces from the selection. To get started, let's unlock the background layer by clicking the lock icon. If you need to double check your toolbar so that it matches mine, you can go up to Window, Workspace. If Essentials is checked, you're good to go. If not, you can reset Essentials. The tools we'll be working with will be the Clone Stamp tool, which is the letter S for the keyboard shortcut, the Patch tool, which is located on the same tab as your Spot Healing tool. So if you have the Spot Healing tool showing, you can switch that to your Patch tool. And we'll be using the Content Aware Fill option on the Edit menu. Once we have something selected, then this will no longer be grayed out and we'll be able to use that one. The reason why there's 3 different choices here is because you can use multiple tools to do the same job. I just want to expose you to multiple tools. That way you can decide what works best for you for any specific scenario that you are doing that's outside of this assignment. So let's start with the Clone Stamp tool. So with layer 0 selected, the Clone Stamp tool works by making a selection of the area that you want to clone. So for instance, let's start with this yellow leaf in the back. I want this leaf to go away and I want to use part of the driveway to cover it up. So with the Clone Stamp tool, my brush is about the size of the leaf. If I go out and I click and I want to be a little bit away from that leaf, so right about here, to load my stamp tool, I need to hold Option on my keyboard first. So hold Option on a Mac or Alt on a Windows computer, and you see the target pop up. Once you have that target, you're going to left click with your mouse one time to load your selection, while still holding Option or Alt. Now I can release my Option or my Alt key, and if I move my mouse, I can see that there's this little gray area inside of that circle, and that is the part of the driveway that I just cloned. Before I click on anything, I'm going to move my mouse over to the area that I want that to cover up. And my Clone Stamp is set to normal mode and my opacity is at 100%. So now, if I start to paint, you see that a plus sign pops up where I first loaded my Clone Stamp tool. And it's adding to my selection as I paint over the leaf. So anything the plus sign is touching is what it is painting. So I could leave that loaded that way and not do anything else, just go over to another leaf and let's see what happens. So I'm over here, I'm gonna make my brush a little bit smaller and begin to paint. Now I see that plus sign is to the left, and anything that plus sign touches is what it's going to clone. So as you see, as I'm moving that leaf to the left, it's starting to paint the grass that's located on the left, because that's what the plus sign is touching. So as you are working with the Clone Stamp tool, you may have to load your brush multiple times in order to have success with the Clone Stamp tool. So I don't want the grass on the driveway, so I will undo that. And if you've done the same thing, just undo that, Command Z and undo, or Control Z on Windows, and go back to a prior history state. So if I want to get rid of this leaf, I need to pick up a new selection. So maybe I will work from this side of the driveway now. So I'm going to place my mouse right about here. I'm going to hold Option on my keyboard and get my target to pop up. And then I'm going to left click with my mouse, load my brush, and begin to paint. So now my plus sign is on the opposite side and it's only touching the driveway. And now that leaf is gone. So potentially I could do all of the leaves like that. However, you're going to get to some points where it might be a little bit more tricky, like this intersection here, as you have a line here and a line here and here and here. So what will it paint? Well, this might be a situation where you need to make multiple loads to get this leaf to go away. So let's do this one together. So this line is running vertically. So I'm going to load this line with my clone stamp tool. So I'm going to hold Option on my keyboard, get my target to pop up, left click with my mouse, and I can see that there's a line in there, and I want that line to kind of match up. So I'm going to stay as straight as I can and come down till I can get to the bottom of that line. So now I'll go horizontally by making another selection. So maybe I'll start out this way, hold Option on my keyboard, load my target on that line, let go of Option or Alt, and begin to paint that line across the middle to the other side. Now all I need to do is just clean up these little areas here. So just load my brush again with maybe this bottom part so it has the same color in this area, and paint closer. So I'll go to this area, hold Option, load the target, and paint closer. Now if I zoom out, I can make any adjustments I need to make. And if I want that to go a little closer in the middle, just bring that line down a little further. So that's practicing with the clone stamp tool. So now let's do a little practice with the patch tool. Okay, so it also works by moving part of the area to replace it with another part. I want to select the area I want to remove, so I'm going to draw a line around this leaf, make it connect. And now I see if I let go of my mouse, I get my little patch tool to come up with the arrows. And if I click and hold, left click and hold it, and just drag that selection out until it gets to where I want it, I don't see that leaf anymore, and let go and deselect, Command D or Control D to deselect. Now that leaf is gone. So I can do another one, select the leaf, use the patch tool to move any direction, and when it disappears, just let go, Command D, and deselect. So I can continue that and do as many as I wanted at one time if it works. If it doesn't, undo it. Move the driveway, Command D, and deselect. Okay, so that is the patch tool. And another way to do it is the content aware and fill. So let's do that together as well. And then you can finish removing the leaves as you would like, and we'll go into the final step of adding the tree. It really doesn't matter concerning which selection tool that you use. I'm just going to switch to the rectangular marquee tool and just draw a rectangle around one of the leaves. Then I'll go up to Edit, Content Aware Fill. And if it's not grayed out, you're good to go. If it's still gray, just double check and make sure that you are on layer 0, and then go back to Edit. And you should see that Content Aware Fill is available for you to use. Just click it. Now we see our preview box come up, and it's going to show us what that selection is going to look like. And as you can see, our little rectangle, that leaf is gone in our preview. It has already cleared that up for us. In the event that it had not made a good selection, we might have to take away from parts that we don't want it to sample. So we could remove maybe this leaf and this leaf from the green part. Anything that's green is what it's sampling from. And it's done a really good job, and we can see what it's doing as it's doing it. So if we are satisfied with the selection from Content Aware Fill, and we want to keep it on the same layer because we're outputting to the same layer. If you wanted it on separate layers, you could do that in the drop-down box. But for this, we will just do current layer, and we can click OK. Now that leaf is gone. And same process, Command D and deselect. So I could do it again and maybe do, let's see if we can do both of these. Edit, Content Aware Fill. Here's our selection. It's already cleared up for us. I'm okay with that. I don't need to make any adjustments here, and I will click OK. And it's done. So that is 3 different ways that you can remove the leaves from the yard. And to get the clearest choice possible, you may have to switch between the selections. So I'll do one more from the roof, and let's do content aware fill up here and see what happens. Edit, content aware fill. Here's our sample. You have all of the lines on the roof. If you don't want it to sample from a portion of it, just take away from parts that you don't like and see if that makes any difference. We really just want it to sample from the roof, so I could remove these other parts here. And click OK. That leaf is gone. Go through and remove the rest of the leaves from the yard, again using any combination of the clone stamp tool, the patch tool, and the content aware fill option. Could potentially remove all of the lines from the sod here, these individual blocks of grass, if you wanted to. That's not required, but if you want to do a little bit more touch up, you can do that. I'm going to go ahead and remove this extra drain. That looks like someone just left it there, so I'm just going to click the stamp tool. Load my stamp tool and just remove that from the scene. Okay, so let's add a little greenery here by adding a tree. And I'm going to work with this bottom tree. You can choose the top one if you want. It will be the same process for each. So I'm going to use my object selection tool and select the tree here. So switching to object selection. Just going to click on it. The tree is selected, and I'm going to copy and paste. Now I see the tree is on its own layer. If I'd like to label it, I can do that, but I'm only going to have one tree. Switch to my move tool. That's the V on my keyboard shortcut. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see this tree. Now, if you notice this selection, I'm going to put the tree right about here. Maybe stretch it out a little bit. Kind of fill the gap here. And if you notice, you see there's quite a bit of white left in the spaces of the tree. Now you could potentially just use maybe the magic wand tool And if I'm on the tree layer, I could go ahead and maybe click in the white spaces and press delete to get rid of some of the white spaces. But this would take a very, very long time. Instead of doing that, what we can do is work with channels. And this may not work for all situations in making selections, but for this one, it will work. So I have the Channels tab here behind the Layers panel. If you do not see a Channels tab, go up to Window and check Channels. So if I click on Channels, I see that we are in the RGB color space. That's red, green, and blue. If you want to see what each one of those looks like, just turn off the visibility and you can see exactly what that means. So what we are looking for here is which one of these channels has the most contrast so that we can see more of the light color versus the green color. Okay, so if I turn off the visibility of red and we see blue and green are left here, still a lot of color. I want high contrast. So I'm going to turn off the green channel as well. And that contrast is what we are wanting on the blue channel. So now that I've decided which one I want to work with, I'm going back to my Layers panel, double clicking with my mouse in the gray area to bring up this box. This is the layer style box, and this is the box we want to look at. And here we see we have our red, green, and blue channel showing so that we see the image as it is. But we want to blend if we see blue. So switch to blue. Now, with this slider, we want to adjust this so that we can get rid of as much white as possible. So let's move the right slider for the current layer to the left. And let's see if we can start to see the white portion go away on the tree. And let's do about 140. Yeah, 141. And click OK. So now I think that looks a whole lot better. And for some of these scraggly pieces here, if I just grab my eraser tool, I can go in and clean up some of the extra leaves here that are just kind of hanging out there. All right, so now we just want to blend the tree into the background a little bit more. I think it's a little too bright for this setting. So here's where we will work with the adjustment layers for our tree. So going to the Create New Fill or Adjustment layer, I want to work with the exposure. And I want to clip my exposure layer just to my tree so it doesn't affect the overall picture. So I'm going to hold Option on my keyboard, bring up my clipping mask option, and then that's Alt on a Windows keyboard. I'm just going to left click there and clip that to the tree layer. And I'm just going to shift my exposure down a little bit. And you can work with any of these sliders and see what they do. So this would be as if you took the picture on your cell phone or with a DSLR camera, and maybe it's a little bit overexposed or underexposed. You can adjust that. And I think I'm going to add another adjustment layer and work with the curves layer. And I see I've got quite a bit of brightness to it. Clip that again. And just bring it down a bit. I kind of like how that looks. And if I do want to brighten up the whole image just a little bit, so instead of clipping it, I could add another adjustment layer and maybe a brightness and contrast and just brighten up the whole image so that they match a little bit better. You can adjust contrast. Let's see. I don't want to lose the sky, the blue and the clouds. I want to leave that. So maybe just adjusting that a bit more and adding or taking away a little bit of contrast. I am happy with this. I'm not going to worry about a shadow because of where the clouds are in the sky. It doesn't look like it's casting any shadow here, so I don't have to worry about that. So here is our finished product. Feel free to add more trees if you would like. to get more practice and just get the hang of it if you enjoyed doing that. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to turn this in to your teachers. They have requested, and I will see you in the next one.